The morning sky over the small town of Pine Ridge burned orange when the alien ship came screaming down. Most folks thought it was just another meteor until the ground shook and windows rattled 3 miles away. Tom Bradley was fixing his truck when the crash happened. He dropped his wrench and stared at the black smoke rising from Miller's cornfield. By the time he reached the crash site, half the town was already there, standing around a twisted mass of metal that looked nothing like any plane they'd ever seen. The ship was huge, maybe 200 feet long, but it had hit the ground so hard that it buried itself 20 feet deep. Strange blue lights flickered along its hull, and the metal seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. Nobody dared get too close at first. "Should we call the government?" asked Mary Wilson, the town's mayor. "Already did," said Sheriff Davis, holding up his radio. "They're sending people, but it'll take hours to get here." That's when they heard the sound, a low humming that seemed to come from inside the ship. Everyone stepped back except for Jake Murphy, the town's mechanic. Jake had always been curious about how things worked, and this was the biggest puzzle he'd ever seen. "There's something alive in there," Jake said, pressing his ear to the warm metal. The humming grew louder, then stopped. A section of the hull suddenly opened with a hiss, and thick green gas poured out. Everyone ran except Jake, who stood his ground as a figure stumbled out of the smoke. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. It wore a tight-fitting suit that sparkled like metal, and it was clearly hurt. Green blood dripped from a cut on its head, and one of its arms hung limp at its side. The creature looked around at the humans, staring at it, then spoke in a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. "Help," it said in perfect English. "Ship broken. Need fix." Jake stepped forward while everyone else stayed back. "You're hurt," Jake said. "Let us help you." The alien, who would later tell them his name was Nix, looked surprised that a human would offer help. In his travels across the galaxy, most species either ran away or tried to capture him when his kind crashed on their worlds. "Why help?" Nix asked. "Because you need it," Jake said simply. Over the next few hours, more aliens emerged from the ship. There were 12 of them in total, all from a species called the Ketheri. They had been explorers, mapping new star systems, when their ship's engine failed. They never expected to crash on a world with intelligent life. The town doctor, Lisa Park, did her best to treat the injured aliens. Their biology was different, but they bled and hurt just like humans. Meanwhile, Jake and some other mechanics started looking at the ship's engine with Nix as their guide. "This is amazing," Jake said, staring at the massive crystal that powered their ship. "How does it work?" Nix explained that the crystal channeled energy from their home star, but it had cracked during the crash. Without it, they were stranded. "Can we fix it?" Jake asked. "Not possible," Nix said sadly. "Crystal very rare, only found on Ketheri homeworld." But Jake wasn't ready to give up. He spent the whole night studying the crystal and the engine, taking notes and making sketches. The other mechanics helped, bringing tools and lights. Soon, half the town was involved in trying to understand the alien technology. By morning, government vehicles started arriving. Black SUVs and military trucks surrounded the crash site. Men in suits and uniforms pushed the townspeople back and set up a perimeter. "This is now a restricted area," announced a man in a colonel's uniform. "All civilians must leave immediately." The townspeople protested, but they were forced to leave their new alien friends behind. Only Jake managed to sneak back that night, crawling through the corn to reach the ship. He found Nix and the other aliens locked in a military trailer, under heavy guard. "They want to study us," Nix whispered when Jake appeared at the small window. "Take our technology. We told them we just want to go home, but they don't listen." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. These weren't invaders or threats. They were just travelers who needed help, and his government was treating them like prisoners. "Don't worry," Jake told Nix. "We'll get you out of here." That night, Jake went home and started making phone calls. By morning, He had a plan that would change everything, not just for the aliens, but for humanity's place in the universe. The crash was just the beginning. Jake's plan was simple but dangerous. He called every mechanic, farmer, and truck driver he knew. By sunset, 30 vehicles surrounded the military camp from all sides. They didn't have weapons, just tools, rope, and determination. Remember, Jake told the group over their radios, "We're not fighting the military. We're just helping some friends get home." The distraction worked perfectly. While half the vehicles created noise and confusion at the main gate, Jake and 5 others cut through the fence behind the trailer holding the aliens. The guards ran toward the commotion, leaving only 2 soldiers to watch the prisoners. "Hey," Jake called to the guards, "your commander wants you at the front gate. Emergency." The soldiers looked confused but ran off when they heard shouting and honking horns. Jake quickly cut the trailer lock with bolt cutters. Nix and his crew were weak but grateful. They had been given little food or water while the military scientists poked and prodded them for information about their technology. "Ship still there?" Nix asked as Jake helped him out. "Yes, but we can't get to it. Too many soldiers." "Don't need whole ship," Nix said with something like a smile. "Just need power crystal. And some human help." They escaped in the chaos, disappearing into the network of back roads that only locals knew. Jake brought the aliens to his garage on the edge of town, where they could hide and plan their next move. Over the following days, something amazing happened. Word spread through Pine Ridge about what the government was doing, and people got angry. These aliens weren't monsters. They were visitors who needed help getting home. The townspeople started bringing food, blankets, and anything else Nix and his crew needed. But more importantly, they'd brought their skills. Mike Torres, who worked at the power plant, understood energy systems. Betty Kim ran the electronics repair shop and knew circuits better than anyone. Old Pete Anderson had been a welder for 40 years and could shape metal like clay. One by one, the best minds in Pine Ridge gathered in Jake's garage. Nix watched in amazement as these humans worked together to solve problems they'd never seen before. When he explained how their crystal technology worked, Mike immediately saw connections to human power systems. When Betty looked at their computer interfaces, she found ways to make them work with Earth electronics. "Your people," Nix told Jake one evening. "They learn very fast. Faster than any species I know." "We're stubborn," Jake replied. "When we want to fix something, we don't give up." The breakthrough came when Pete figured out how to create a housing for the power crystal using scrap metal and car parts. It wasn't pretty, but it would work. "Now we just need the crystal," Jake said. That was the hard part. The military had moved the alien ship to a secure facility 50 miles away. Getting inside would be impossible, even with their whole town helping. But Nix had an idea. "Crystal responds to Cathari biosignature," he explained. "From distance of 1 mile. I can call it. Make it come to me." "You mean it can fly?" "Not fly, but can move through matter. Like your human stories of ghosts." Jake grinned. "Then we don't need to break in. We just need to get you close enough." 3 nights later, Jake and Nix drove to within a mile of the military facility. Using a modified CB radio that Betty had connected to the alien's portable computer, Nix sent out a signal that only the crystal could hear. Deep inside the underground bunker, the power crystal began to glow. Scientists watching it scrambled to take readings as it started vibrating. Then, without warning, it simply vanished from its containment chamber, phasing through solid concrete and steel as if they weren't there. Security alarms blared, but there was nothing to stop. The crystal reappeared in the back of Jake's pickup truck, settling into the housing that Pete had built for it. "Got it," Jake said into his radio. "Then let's go home and build us a spaceship," came Pete's voice over the static. But when they got back to the garage, they found something unexpected. The other aliens were standing around a large table covered with blueprints and technical drawings. They looked up at Jake and Nix with expressions of excitement. "We've been thinking," said Vera, Nix's second in command. "About your planet. About your people." "What about them?" Jake asked. "They're in danger," Vera said. "And they don't even know it." Nix nodded gravely. "The Empire is coming. The same Empire that destroyed our homeworld. They follow our ships. Conquest comes after exploration." Jake felt cold despite the warm garage. "How long do we have?" 6 months, maybe less. "Then we better get building," Jake said, looking at his friends and neighbors. "Because we're not going down without a fight." The next morning, Pine Ridge looked like a different town. What started as a secret operation in Jake's garage had grown into something much bigger. Word had spread beyond the town limits, and people were arriving from all over the state. Engineers from the city brought technical expertise. Farmers brought heavy equipment and materials. Veterans brought tactical knowledge. Students brought fresh ideas and enthusiasm. Even the local priest, Father Martinez, showed up with sandwiches and moral support. "This is crazy," said Dr. Amanda Foster, a physics professor from the state university. She had driven 3 hours after hearing rumors about alien technology. "You're talking about building a weapon that can fight an interstellar empire." "Not a weapon," Jake corrected. "A defense system." Nix had spent the night explaining what they faced. The Draconic Empire had conquered dozens of worlds, always following the same pattern. First, they tracked exploration ships to find new planets. Then they sent advanced scouts to study the native species. Finally, they arrived with massive fleets to claim everything. "They see resistance as sport," Nix explained to the growing crowd. "The more a species fights, the more they enjoy the conquest." "So we don't fight them," said Colonel James Wright, a retired Air Force officer who had arrived that morning. "We prepare to survive them." "No," Jake said firmly. "We fight them. But we fight them smart." The plan that emerged over the following weeks was ambitious beyond anything anyone had imagined. Using the alien crystal technology, they would build a defense network that could protect not just Pine Ridge, but potentially the entire planet. The first step was creating more crystals. Nix explained that while the power crystals were rare, they could be grown using the right materials and energy. Pete's welding skills proved crucial in creating the precise containment fields needed for crystal growth. "It's like growing plants," Betty said, watching the first new crystal form in its chamber. "Except the plants can power a city." Mike Torres worked on scaling up the power systems. The alien technology was incredibly efficient, but it needed to be adapted to Earth's electrical grid. He spent days with Vera, learning how Cathari energy systems worked and finding ways to make them compatible with human technology. Meanwhile, Dr. Foster and her team of academics worked on the theoretical problems. How could they create shields strong enough to stop alien weapons? How could they detect approaching ships? How could they coordinate a defense across an entire planet? The answers came from combining human innovation with alien knowledge. The Cathari had advanced technology, but they had always been explorers, not warriors. They had defensive systems, but nothing designed for the kind of large-scale conflict that was coming. Humans, however, had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They understood tactics, strategy, and the importance of working together against a common enemy. "Your species is unique," Vera told Jake one evening as they watched teams of humans and Cathari working side by side. "Most civilizations specialize. They become either warriors or explorers or builders. But humans, you do everything." The breakthrough came when Tom Bradley, still fixing trucks but now also helping with alien technology, suggested using the highway system as a backbone for their defense network. "Think about it," he said, pointing at a road map. "We've got interstate highways going everywhere. We could put relay stations every 50 miles. Connect them all with buried cables. One big network covering the whole continent." It was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to build a few massive defensive installations, they would create thousands of smaller nodes that could work together. If the aliens destroyed one section, the rest would keep functioning. Construction began immediately. Teams spread out across the country, following the highways and setting up relay stations disguised as ordinary buildings. A gas station in Oklahoma became a shield generator. A truck stop in Kansas hid a sensor array. A rest area in Colorado contained enough firepower to stop a small fleet. The government finally noticed when power grids across 3 states suddenly became 300% more efficient. Military satellites detected unusual energy signatures at hundreds of locations. FBI agents started asking questions about missing materials and unauthorized construction. But by then, it was too late to stop. The network was too big, too distributed, and too well hidden. More importantly, word had spread about what was really happening. The president herself called Jake directly. "Mr. Bradley," she said, "we need to talk." The meeting took place in Washington, in a secure room deep underground. Jake brought Nix and Colonel Wright. The president brought her top military advisors and scientists. "Show us," the president said simply. Jake activated a portable display unit that Betty had built. It showed a 3-dimensional map of North America, with thousands of glowing dots representing their network nodes. "This is what we've built in 6 weeks, Jake said. "With your help, we could cover the entire planet in 6 months." The president stared at the display for a long moment. "What do you need?" she asked. Everything changed after that meeting. Within hours, military bases across the country were being contacted. Engineers from NASA, MIT, and dozens of other institutions were boarding flights to Pine Ridge. The small-town garage where it all started became the headquarters for the largest construction project in human history. But Jake insisted on keeping the original team in charge. The government could provide resources and manpower, but the people who had started this project would finish it. "These aren't your typical contractors," Colonel Wright explained to a group of confused Pentagon officials. "They've been working with alien technology for months. They understand it better than anyone else on Earth." The scale of construction was incredible. Every major nation on Earth contributed resources once they understood the threat. Chinese factories produced specialized components. European engineers designed new types of shields. Russian scientists worked on detection systems. African miners extracted rare materials needed for crystal growth. The network spread like a living thing, following highways, railway lines, and shipping routes. Each continent developed its own style based on local resources and expertise. The North American network used highway rest stops and truck stops as cover. The European system hid inside ancient castles and historical sites. The Asian network integrated with existing industrial complexes. Nix and his crew worked tirelessly, teaching human engineers the secrets of Cathari technology. But they were amazed by how quickly humans adapted and improved their designs. "Look at this," Vera said, showing Nix a modified shield generator that a team from Japan had created. They made it 40% more efficient by changing the crystal alignment. "And this," added Marcus, another Cathari engineer, pointing to a sensor array designed by Brazilian scientists. "It can detect ships at twice the range of our original design." But the most impressive innovation came from an unexpected source. Lysa Park, the small-town doctor who had first treated the injured aliens, approached Jake with an idea. "I've been thinking about biological compatibility," she said. "The Cathari technology responds to biosignatures, right? What if we could tune it to recognize human biosignatures too?" The implications were staggering. If they could integrate human biology with alien technology, the defense network wouldn't just be controlled by computers. It would be linked directly to human operators. The first test took place in Jake's original garage, now expanded into a full research facility. Lisa had volunteered to be the first test subject, connecting her nervous system to a small crystal array through a device that looked like a high-tech headband. "I can feel it," she whispered as the connection activated. "I can sense the entire network. Every node, every shield generator, every sensor array." Through Lisa's neural link, the network became truly alive. Response times dropped from seconds to microseconds. Coordination between distant nodes became perfect. The system could now think and react like a living organism. Within weeks, thousands of volunteers had joined the neural network. Pilots, engineers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens all linked their minds to the defense system. Each person added their skills and knowledge to the collective defense of Earth. The aliens watched this development with a mixture of awe and fear. "Your species scares me sometimes," Nix told Jake as they watched a group of humans practicing with the neural interface. "You adapt so fast. You take our technology and make it better than we ever imagined." "That's what we do," Jake replied. "We take problems and solve them." But not everyone was happy with the rapid changes. Some governments worried about losing control to the civilian-led project. Some military leaders questioned whether ordinary people could handle such powerful technology. Some religious groups protested the mixing of human and alien biology. The first real test came when a group of fighter jets tried to destroy a network node in Texas, acting on orders from officials who thought the project had gone too far. The network detected the attack long before the jets arrived. Instead of destroying them, the system simply shut down their engines, forcing them to land safely in a nearby field. The pilots were unharmed, but thoroughly convinced that they had picked a fight with something beyond their understanding. "We're not your enemy," Jake broadcast to military leaders around the world. "We're trying to save everyone, including you." The message was received loud and clear when the first alien scout ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. The detection came through the deep space sensors that teams from around the world had positioned throughout the outer planets. 12 ships, moving fast and heading straight for Earth. "They're not Ketheri," Nix said, studying the sensor data with growing alarm. "These are Draconic Empire scouts. They're here to assess our defenses before the main fleet arrives." Jake looked at the display showing the approaching ships, then at the global map showing thousands of network nodes all across Earth. "Let's give them something to assess," he said, activating the worldwide alert system. "All stations, this is it. Time to show the universe what humans can do." The first thing the Draconic scouts noticed was the silence. Usually, when they approached the new world, they detected panic. Radio transmissions full of fear, military units scrambling uselessly, governments falling into chaos. Earth was quiet. Too quiet. "Something's wrong," Captain Throck told his squadron as they entered the outer solar system. "Where are their defensive fleets? Where are their weapons platforms?" The answer came when they crossed the orbit of Neptune. Every piece of space debris in the solar system suddenly lit up. Asteroids that had been floating dead in space for millions of years revealed themselves as carefully disguised sensor arrays. The rings of Saturn buzzed with hidden monitoring stations. Even the moon's surface sparkled with the activation of concealed defense nodes. "By the dark stars," whispered Lieutenant Vex, staring at her scanner readings. "The entire system is armed." On Earth, Jake stood in the command center that had grown around his old garage. Hundreds of screens showed the positions of the alien scouts, tracked by sensors spread across half the galaxy. The neural network hummed with the thoughts of thousands of linked humans, their collective intelligence focused on the approaching threat. 12 scout ships, reported Dr. Foster, her mind linked to the deep space sensors. Fast attack class, armed with plasma cannons and shield generators. Standard draconic formation, added Colonel Wright through the neural link. "They'll try to test our defenses with hit-and-run attacks." But Jake had other plans. "Lisa, can you reach their communication systems?" Dr. Park's consciousness stretched across space, touching the alien ships with invisible sensors. "Got them. Should I jam their transmissions?" "No," Jake said with a smile. "I want them to report everything they see." The first scout ship entered Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, expecting to find primitive aircraft rising to meet it. Instead, it found something impossible. The ocean itself rose up to greet them. Miles of seawater lifted into the sky, held aloft by gravity manipulators hidden on the ocean floor. Within the floating ocean, Earth's sea life swam normally, as if nothing unusual was happening. Whales sang, dolphins played, and schools of fish moved through their three-dimensional aquarium suspended between sea and sky. "What kind of species," Captain Throck muttered, "uses an ocean as a shield?" The answer became clear when the floating ocean suddenly reshaped itself into a massive lens, focusing sunlight into a beam that could cut through starship armor like paper. The scout ship barely dodged the solar attack, fleeing toward the Atlantic where they hoped to find less impossible defenses. They found worse. The Atlantic Ocean had been turned into a massive circuit board. Floating platforms connected by cables of woven crystal created patterns that could be seen from orbit. Each platform housed a different type of weapon or shield generator, all working together in perfect harmony. When the scout ship fired its plasma cannons, the ocean circuit redirected the energy into the planet's core, where it was stored and amplified. When the aliens tried to retreat, the stored energy was released as a coherent beam that punched through their shields like they weren't there. The damaged scout ship limped toward Europe, hoping to find a place to land and repair. Instead, they found the most terrifying sight yet. Every city had been transformed into a fortress, but not in any way the aliens could understand. London's bridges had become massive particle accelerators that fired streams of charged atoms at anything in orbit. Paris had grown crystal spires that sang with harmonious frequencies capable of disrupting alien technology. Rome's ancient Colosseum now housed a gravity well generator that could trap starships in invisible chains. But the most shocking sight was the people. Humans went about their daily lives as if nothing unusual was happening. Children played in parks while orbital defense platforms tracked enemy ships overhead. Business people walked to work past missile launchers disguised as public art. Families had picnics in fields where the grass itself was a sensor array capable of detecting threats from other star systems. "They're not afraid," Lieutenant Vex reported in amazement. "A draconic fleet is attacking their world, and they're not afraid." That's when Captain Throck understood the true horror of what they faced. This wasn't a primitive species with crude defenses. This was a civilization that had turned their entire planet into a single living weapon. Every human was a soldier, every city was a fortress, every piece of technology was part of a vast war machine that spanned continents. The surviving scout ships retreated to the edge of the solar system and sent their report to the Draconic Empire. The message was simple but terrifying. Planet Earth is defended by an integrated global defense network of unprecedented sophistication. Estimated defensive capability: unknown. Recommended invasion force: maximum available. But there was a second part to the message that would haunt draconic commanders for years to come. Warning: the humans are not afraid of us. They appear to be looking forward to our arrival. Jake read the intercepted message and smiled. After months of building, planning, and preparing, Earth was finally ready. The universe had laughed when a small alien ship crashed in a cornfield. Now it was humanity's turn to laugh back.